Hey there everyone, it's Dave Barnett once again from investlocalbook.com. I got a question from a viewer about making an investment into a startup business, and we had a brief exchange of emails back and forth. But I thought it was a great example of a potential situation that some people out there may be looking at, and I thought it would make a great video, so I'm going to share it with you. Now, the viewer, the individual, was out on the West Coast of the United States, and he basically emailed me and he said that he has a friend who's looking at doing a startup and has a business plan all put together and has been told by a bank that he's been approved for a loan, but the friend needs to have a certain amount of cash of his own in order to get the loan. So this would be some kind of equity requirement. Now, in the email, the viewer, the potential investor, said that they're talking about a $15,000 investment. So the business startup entrepreneur has asked this viewer for $15,000, and he's basically giving him two options. Number one, lend me the 15 grand or invest 15 grand in my business. And the viewer wanted to know what are the pros and cons of each and how would he then get his money back out. So in my book, Invest Local, I actually have a whole section in there about why you don't want to be a minority shareholder in a small business. And the reason for that is that as a shareholder in a business, you get dividends, okay? And dividends are controlled by two different things. Number one, the net income of the business. So if there's a net income, the business can then have a dividend, but the board of directors basically decides how much that dividend is going to be, when it's going to be paid out, the amount of money. So you could have an incredibly profitable business, for example, and the majority owner who controls the board could decide not to issue any dividends. And as a minority shareholder, you're not going to get any money. You're not going to get a return on your investment. The other thing that can happen is that a business owner could manage the business in such a way that there's no net income. So, for example, you see this all the time in companies like a construction business where the owner who's going to drive around in a pickup truck all day, instead of buying a $15,000 pickup truck, will buy himself an $80,000 pickup truck. Now, if that's his business and he owns it, that's fine. It's his business. He can do as he wishes. But if you own 10% of that company, and the reason there's no net income is because all of the money that would normally be available is going into lease payments on this fancy truck, then you're going to start to feel a little bit abused because basically he's sucking up all the profits. They're not ending up on the bottom line, which means that there's no money left to declare a dividend with. So that's why I'm not a big fan of being a minority shareholder in small business. Now, the other option was to loan him the money. So we don't have a couple of the key details that I would ask if somebody I knew approached me and said, Dave, I've got a business ready to go. I need a certain amount of equity from the bank's point of view. I'm short. Would you lend me 15 grand? My first question would be, well, what's the total equity position you need to have? Because if somebody told me, I need to put up $90,000, Dave, and I'm short 15, that means they're in for 75 grand of their own money. That's a completely different scenario than if somebody says, I have no money and I'd like to get 15 from you that I can then put in the bank and pretend is mine so that the bank will then lend me more money. Because in that scenario, you're talking about someone who has no skin in the game. I would much rather be in business or make a loan to someone who's got $5 or $6 invested for every one of mine, because it means they're going to fight like hell to make the business work. Now, the viewer also asked, what sort of interest rate should I look at if I'm looking at making a loan? And my advice to him was, first of all, if you can at all, if it's at all possible, you want to have some sort of collateral on any loan that you do. One of the reasons why the investments that I describe in the book Invest Local are so relatively risk-free is because they always include some sort of security, something you can go put your hands on if the deal goes bad. So if there is security, if the guy owns a car or an RV or something that has no debt on it and he can offer that to you as security, then you might want to look at doing this deal because there's a plan B. If the business fails, there's a way for you to get your hands on some money. You can take that asset and sell it somewhere. The Other question is, if there's no security at all, what sort of interest rate would you be looking at? Let's consider this from the point of view of a banker. So if I walked into a bank and I said, Mr. Banker, I'd like to borrow some money, there's two different vehicles that a bank might use to lend me some money. They might do a line of credit, for instance. So in a line of credit, there's probably an underwriting process. They might ask me to provide details about my assets and liabilities. They might examine my net worth. So they're getting a fairly good picture of my overall financial position. And then they might come back and say, we're going to give you an interest rate on this line of credit of prime plus so many points, prime plus 2, prime plus 3, for example. And many of you out there may be in this situation where you have this line of credit. The other way that a bank might lend you some money is by providing you with a credit card. Now, when you apply for a credit card, and you can do it in many instances online nowadays, you fill out an application form. They check your credit bureau. Your credit bureau shows your debts and your history of payment, but it does not show your assets. So you could be technically insolvent. You could be bankrupt, and if you pay your bills on time every month, you could have a good credit score, and that credit card could get approved. Okay? So the difference, though, from the bank's point of view is they haven't done the same level of underwriting for the credit card, so the risk is greater for the bank, but the reward is also greater because they're not charging prime plus 2, they're charging 19%, 21.9%, 23%. So the interest rate is much higher, and that's what compensates the bank for the fact that they haven't done a full underwriting. So I recommended to this viewer, if you're going to make an unsecured personal loan to this guy, then you need to start thinking about the types of interest rates that a bank might do. You're basically talking about being a credit card to this guy. No security, no collateral, a personal loan. We already know that he's going to use the money and represent it as equity to the bank so he can borrow more money. So he's going to take on even more debt. And while the business plan may look good, business plans do look good. Often, business plans are not written to determine whether or not a business makes sense. Often they're written as a sales document to convince a banker to make a loan. So they often do look great on paper. Everything should work out. But we know because of small business failure rates that oftentimes it doesn't work out, and we need to have a plan B. I also said, I've got experience doing these deals. I would probably not do a $15,000 unsecured loan to someone who is starting a business. If it was a good close friend of mine, I might say to him, look, I believe in your project. I believe in you. I'd like to help you out, but with no collateral, it's a little risky for me. How about I consider doing a $5,000 loan if you can find 2 other people to come in with me, and basically 3 of us will provide the $15,000 that you need. Now he's got to convince not just me, but 2 other people to get involved in the same deal. So I hope that was, an interesting story for you guys. I know in this exchange with the viewer, I went back and forth a few times and gave him some ideas about the way he should think about this deal and helped to understand just exactly what the risks are. Because really it is a very risky proposition because you're talking about making a loan potentially to someone where there's no collateral available potentially, who is then going to take that money and use it to borrow even more. So the person is going to be in a highly leveraged state, which means that more than ever, the business has to be successful in producing the correct amount of cash flow to make sure that it works. Anyway, if you want to learn more about doing local investing deals, then you should read my book, Invest Local, which is available at investlocalbook.com or from Amazon stores around the world. And if you want to do a deal of your own, you should invest in some education and take my course on how to do small local investing deals, which is available at localinvestingcourse.com. And we'll talk with you next time. See ya. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. That's great. Don't forget, visit www.investlocalbook.com sign up for my email list. It's right down here under the welcome video. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.